when you're recording, when you record, you always like be very careful when you record it, because it's going to get played back for you at some point. And really, we're always recorded. I say, like, God's always recording everything, but it's much more, when they have you on tape. And I say this, you walk around Manhattan now, you can't really go anywhere without the video camera somewhere. Like everywhere you go, you have to read and watch everywhere. If they want to find you later on, we go to a store like Home Depot, or we went. My daughter's talking about looking up. There's cameras like watching everything. So you're always being watched. I guess it's a good thing to always be watched. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today was miracles. How to make miracles. How to make your own miracles. Which is a good thing to do. If you make your own miracle, everything really follows after that. And I want to start with saying this: that there's in the Torah portion this week, we're at an important time of the year. The Torah portion is important, and we're heading into the miracles of Purim and the miracles of Passover. And these past week's Torah portion are usually combined, but this year they're separate because the Torah year is longer this year. It was a Shana Ubar, a year with an extra month. So our holiday stays with Passover in the springtime, so they're spread out. But these week's parshas are the building of the tabernacle. And last week's parsha, Moshe comes down from the mountain of Sinai with his second set of tablets, and he gathers the Jews together all in one group, right? Like imagine, like if there was a notice in Central Park, right? Everyone get together. The mayor has a huge message. The whole world packed into Central Park. Everyone like packs in Central Park in the Central Park app, and he's in the front, and that's what was like a huge get together, and that's different than most times, because most times. What Moshe did was this. Moshe would go and speak to God, to Hashem, and then he'd go into a room like this size maybe. He'd call his brother Aaron, and Aaron would come in, and Moshe would tell Aaron whatever God told him. Aaron, sit down. Then Moshe would call on Aaron's two sons, Elazar and Tamar, and they would come in. And Moshe would tell them again what God told him the second time. Aaron would hear. They would sit down. One on Aaron's side, one on Moshe's side. Then the elders would come in, the top 100 guys, right? The best rabbis or the most involved people. They would come in, and he would tell them the story. Again, another time. Aaron heard it, the sons heard it, and everyone heard it, the elders heard it, and they would all sit around. And then Moshe would call, like the Central Park, all of the Jews, right? 3 million Jews, all with all their apps, logging in, and Moshe would give them what God just told them. That's usually what happens. But this week it's different. Moshe forgets Aaron, the brothers, the elders, he calls them all at one time. And the question is why? What's he trying to achieve by doing that? So we'll answer that towards the end. That's the question. What's he trying to achieve by doing that? First, a little history. Moshe came down this week the day after Yom Kippur. The day after Yom Kippur. So everyone's, people are like, I always feel like after Yom Kippur, it's like after the final season at college, right? I say, you get in, I got to be good this month, Rosh Hashanah's coming, I'm on my best behavior, I keep my mouth shut for 10 days, you know what I'm saying? I don't say a word, I'm nice to everybody, I don't yell, and then Yom Kippur's over, like, I'm free now, it's great, Another year where I'm not, they don't look so closely again until the next year at this time. That's what I feel after Yom Kippur. So this is the day after Yom Kippur. So the history was this. The Jews leave Egypt 6 months earlier, approximately. They leave Egypt. Egypt is destroyed by plagues. The Jews come out. It's like the best time in Jewish history ever. We have Lamborghinis, Maseratis, Porsches, Learjets, Ducatis. We're cruising through the desert. The Four Seasons Hotel, not this hotel, the Ace Hotel, is like with us right here, right? The Four Seasons is right there. You have the St. Martin's right behind us. What's that?
The Nomad.
The Nomad. Yeah, the Nomad Hotel is right behind us. We're living in those hotels. We're cruising in the desert. Everyone's playing tennis. Everyone loses 30 pounds. It's great, right? And we go to the mountain of Sinai, a couple days later, and Moshe goes up to the mountain. He goes up for 40 days. He comes down with the first set of tablets, and he breaks them. They're broken. He sees the golden calf at the bottom. Breaks the tablets. Okay, not good. He waits a little bit longer. But, the Jews like repent. What do they do? He goes up a second time. That's on Rosh Chodesh El. That's when he starts being good again, right? That's 40 Yom Kippur. He stays in the mountain 40 days again. Comes down on the day of Yom Kippur with his second set of tablets, which is the day before these week's parshas start. Those tablets are good. And the day after that is when he gathers all the Jews together, the day after Yom Kippur, to speak to all of us at one. That's the history. Now, to go up on the mountain, God, the first time on Shavuos, after they left Egypt with the Ducatis and the Maseratis and the Lamborghinis, he says, guys, I got a big present for you. but you got to do three things for me. Three small things. There's always three small things, right? What are the three small things? One is you got to separate from your spouses, right? Separate from your spouses. Number two is you can't touch the mountain. And number three is you have to camp together to believe echad b'shechad. You know, as one man, one heart, one soul. No rivalry, no jealousy, no doing bad things. Just get together. Okay? So those are the three little things. But he gives them a great reward. The reward is this. It says that the tablets were charis, were engraved. So it's really cool engraving. Like, who's like the best artist, you know? Like, there's stone tablets. On one side it said, I am Hashem. And if you flipped it around, it said the same thing on the other side, I am Hashem. But you always read it the right way. It always went like left to right or right to left. However you read it, that's how it worked, right? That's how it worked. And so it was a really cool engraving. But the commentators tell us, don't say charis, but say charis. It's freedom. God's going to give them a tremendous freedom by going up on the Mount of Sinai. What's the tremendous freedom? The tremendous freedom is this. No one's going to die anymore. No death. The Malach HaMavis, you're free from death. No dying at all. That's a pretty good present, right? Essentially saying all the women will be 5'9", 115 pounds, high cheekbones, European models, right? The men will be 6'2", 175 pounds, have played Princeton, basketball at Princeton in the Final Four. Like, it's going to be a great time. That's what God promised them, everlasting life, the fountain of youth. It's tremendous. The only thing they have to do is to keep those three little things. Those three little things they have to do. Now, I'm always fixing the elevator when you talk. It's always hard to do. I was like, the guys are like fixing the elevator. So, those three things, I feel, represent the three hardest parts of a person that you have to overcome your entire life. Those are things that are very hard to overcome. What those three things represent. Separating from your spouse represents separating from your own desires, right? You have a desire. I happen to love chocolate chip cookies, right? I love. My kids will say I have two vices. Vanilla ice cream and chocolate chip cookies, right? Those are things I love, those two things. So, occasionally I'll come home at 10 o'clock at night, from work or something, or meeting, whatever, and my daughter will have baked, 45 chocolate cookies. They're delicious. And they'll be on the stove, on that, that thing they have on the stove, what's it, the cooling tray or cooling rack, and they're like beautiful, the crevices are there, and they're still kind of warm, and the chips are like perky at the top there. I'm like, you know what? One chocolate chip. One chocolate chip, what's the big deal? One chocolate chip. And I'll say, no, you're trying, not Shabbos, no sweets except for Shabbos, come on, you're a man, who's tougher, you or the chocolate chip cookie, who's tougher? So 20 chocolate chip cookies later, I have half one and I have one, I read the mail, I read the paper, 20 cookies down in 2 seconds. So God is saying He wants you to be able to fight against yourself. Because what hurts a person most in life, you know what it takes to be great, you just have to do it. Everyone has battles they fight. My battle is chocolate chip cookies, right? Everyone's got a battle they fight. You got to fight that battle. God says separate. That represents a person's battle with themselves. That's one. The second one is jealousy. God said to camp together as a people. Don't be jealous of anybody else, right? And that's probably the hardest one. It's so hard when you see someone else achieving something, and they're your friend, and they're doing better in work maybe, or maybe they got married, or they have more children, or whatever. There's always something that someone close to you has that's a little better than what you have. And it's very tough to fight that. Very tough. God says, this one time, you're all together, you're going to fight that. Right? I remember reading in the New York papers, there was like a mafia head who had been put in jail, and he was talking how he got rid of his 4 or 5 closest competitors. Right? And each way he got rid of them was a more gruesome way than the prior one, right? And they caught him. And he said, it was so satisfying to watch them go. And at one point you're like, you guys are sicko, right? He has people killed in horrendous fashions, and is talking about how satisfying it is. On the other hand, a part of, he's right, that it does feel satisfying when they're gone. The real end of all jealousy is murder. That's the real end of all jealousy. He killed those people, he's a mafia guy, and they're gone. God says, none of that. None of that, you're working for me now, you got to get out of that. And the last he said is arrogance, is putting God in His proper place. Meaning, you can't touch the mountain. That mountain represents God. God is saying, I'm the Almighty One. You are taking from me. I am the one who is giving to you. I read a book, so I'm bringing it later, about Dershowitz. He said there was a great judge, Belzon. And they wrote, when he passed away, his law clerks and friends wrote an article saying, he's the pebbles, we are the ripples. It's like he was in the water, we're the ripples from that. We have to view God in that way. He is the great one. It's good to humble yourself anyway in life. It's always good to humble yourself. Those three things, God said, those three things, I'll make you trade. Get out of jail free, eternal youth, eternal height, eternal health, everything's great. You have to do one thing for me. No, these three things for me. That's what he says. Now, I want to suggest that those three things affect people throughout the entire world all the time. Those three desires, those three character traits, we all have to fight. And we say, we have a phrase, tikkun olam, to fix the world. Right now, and Jews are out there all the time, all over the place fixing the world, which is a great part of our nation. It's great. And I would say that we have to keep on doing those things. But another quick way to short circuit it is to, as it were, manipulate God, but get God on your side. And God on your side can do, if you win the lottery, you can work your entire life. And if you win the lottery or you find that gold that's cut in California, walk into the property, $10 million of gold coins, I'm saying, it's been there forever, right? That's a lot better than buying stocks in the stock market, right? So if you get God on your side, lots of good things happen. I was reading this Dershowitz book, and he brought two, it's funny, it's very interesting, he says he works with celebrities. And it was very interesting with the celebrities. He said that celebrities make a stupid trade in life. They're willing to trade what they have not much of for what they have unlimited amounts of. Right? They make that trade all the time, he says. It doesn't make any sense to him. So what was his example? He said, Leona Helmsley, the Helmsley Hotel, right? So she was a very wealthy lady, and she cheated on her taxes. How did she cheat on her taxes? And when she cheated on her taxes, she had about $1 billion in cash in the bank. How did she cheat? She bought a stereo system for her, apartment. And with the stereo system, she'd have to take a salary, pay taxes, and then buy it. Who wants to do that? What's that? Better than that, she whited out the word stereo system. She wrote down security system, right? And then she got caught later, and she had the company pay for it. So what did she risk? She risked going to jail. She also, when she bought jewelry, she had the jeweler send empty boxes of jewelry to Miami Beach, because there's no sales tax in Miami Beach, and she took the jewelry in New York City. This is what she went to, and this is because her attitude was terrible, but she went to prison, it's all public record, for these two things, right? She risked time with her husband, who was very, very sick, for something she had unlimited amounts of, $1 billion in the bank. What'd she save on taxes? $30,000. How expensive could the jewelry have been? $50,000 in taxes. It was a silly trade to make. And it also brings a prominent boxer, I want to talk a little detail, but Mike Tyson, who was a boxer. And so when you're a prominent male celebrity that way, one thing you have complete access to is members of the opposite sex who want to date you. They throw themselves at people like Mike Tyson. So people used to send him audition tapes, right? Please call me, here's my audition tape. I'm dancing, I'm singing, she's walking, whatever she did. People really sent him tapes. That was before the iPods. You could go on Facebook or something. But before that, they sent him tapes. So he was, so one night he meets a young woman and goes to a hotel room with her, and she accuses him of forcing himself upon her. And he goes to jail because of that. Went to jail. So Dershowitz met him, and he said, "What are you thinking?" He said, "I think you're an idiot." "You call me an idiot?" He says, "Yes. With someone you don't know, you don't put yourself in a risky situation where you get into a he said, she said, and all of a sudden you find yourself in jail because a professional boxer only has 5 or 10 years where they can make a living. That's it. They can make $20 million in 5 years, but at 32, they're over the hill. So this guy traded what he had very limited access to, which is time, for something he had unlimited access to. It was a silly trade to make. Anyway, the girl framed him. The judge was on her side. He got thrown in jail. And through a series of kind of shining the light, the truth be seen, he was released from jail early. She was embarrassed, and he had to fight it. But he lost 3 years where he could have made, I don't know what he made as a boxer, $20 million a year, a huge amount of money. A huge amount of money. He lost that. It was a bad trade to make. So when I read that, I was like, oh, these athletes are so silly, but I would never make bad trades like that. Not me. Right. And I was thinking, but I make lots of bad trades all day long. We all make bad trades all day long. So I would think, what's like a bad trade, man? In front of the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that here's how you make a good decision in life. When you're about to do something wrong, right? You're about to do something wrong or something right. So you're about to do a good deed. A good deed costs you right now. When I was going to go to my friend's wedding, I felt very badly about this. I was going to go to my friend's, who was making a chasna for one of his many sons, about 3 months ago, and was in Brooklyn. I made an appointment earlier in the city to be there, get there. I worked the whole thing out, and the appointment canceled, and I didn't go to the wedding. And at my community, you go to weddings, you make an appointment, you go for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? People invite some, to eat. You come, you say mazel tov, you go. And is it a schlep? It's a schlep. So what? You go, right? But this time I just couldn't be bothered, and I kind of feel bad. And if I had gone, that would have been over and done, and I feel it's like, I just feel very bad now. I have to tell them, so I apologize, I should have gone, whatever. And sometimes it happens, but I feel it was a bad trade. The 2 hours of driving would have been over. We would have celebrated together. He would have felt good. And that's that. That's how you build relationships. You get to those things. Fine. It's not the worst thing in the world. But it was like, I think about this. I regret not going. And then, it was like a bad trade. I had a good trade. We went to Florida to see my Aunt Helen. And we went to Florida to see my Aunt Helen. I talked about this actually, probably or not? Talk about this one? So I went to see her, I didn't have notes on that. That she was, I'll tell you more here, she's 98 years old, married for 72 years to my uncle. And we went to see her, we packed the car, we packed the kids, we got down early in the morning, we took got up 3 in the morning, take a 6 a.m. flight down to land at 9, to see her at 12. It was a whole schlep. I get down there, it's too cold. I can't come and see you, it's too cold. I was like, it's too cold, I got up 3 o'clock in the morning for you. But I took my kids, 2 hours further north in Florida to see her. And then when I went to see her, we had a great visit. And when I came back, it took me 2.5 hours to get back to where I was going to. It was, it was a real pain. The day was, my kids were cranky, my wife was cranky, I was cranky. We were all cranky, right? But even now, 3 months later, when I call her, she's so happy I went to see her that time. That was like a great trade to make. That was a great trade to make. And that's how you view things. Some trades you make good, or some trades you make not so good. But we all make trades in life, and you want to make the trade where the end result is that you're always happy at the end, as opposed to happy in the beginning. That's how you do those things. Fine. Back to Har Sinai, the mountain of Sinai. The Jews are about to make the worst trade ever. The worst trade ever. They're at the Sinai Mountain. Moses goes up. They're promised eternal life. Eternal life. For eternal youth and eternal life. Just these 3 small things, right? It's like the Yankee game. It's the bottom of the ninth. It's the Yankees and the Red Sox. It's a tie game. 3, 4, and 5 batters are up. And the Red Sox pitcher is like throwing meatballs over the plate. He's lobbing meatballs over the plate. And if you just hit the ball and make a single, you're going to win the game, win the World Series. Everything's over. And the first batter, number 3, is up. 3 swings, 3 misses. He's out. The next batter, number 4, is up. 3 swings, 3 misses. He's out. The last batter is up. And again, 3 swings, 3 misses. He's out. What happens? Moses goes up 40 days to Har Sinai. He's going to come down. He has the 2 tablets with him. Eternal life is guaranteed. You can see him like walking down the mountain. 6 hours before he gets down, the Jews make the golden calf. What does the golden calf represent? The same 3 things the exact opposite way. They had a tremendous party. Every immoral act that could happen was happening right there. That's man versus his own desire. Moses sees that, he says, forget it. Then they worship the golden calf. That's man versus God. And then someone tried to stop them, Hur and some elders. He was killed. They did 3 things wrong. The 3 things that would have gotten them eternal life, they did wrong. Moses breaks the tablets. He breaks the tablets. And that's what we're still fighting today. He goes back up a mountain the second time, goes station 40 days, brings his second set down, and it's Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur comes down again. So Yom Kippur is great. Yom Kippur is a God-mandated rule where we have to, can't eat, can't drink, can't be with our wives, can't put oil on. It's a day where we're just like angels. Comes down on Yom Kippur, and that fixes, we attempt to fix the man versus God relationship. That's one. The second one is he comes down again, and he tells the Jews to build the tabernacle, the Mishkan. That rectifies the man versus God relationship. That's versus man versus himself. This is man versus God, right? Building a tabernacle where God's presence is going to dwell. But the most important one, the hardest one, is man versus everybody else, right? Our relationships, our jealousy. Are we together? Are we not together? And that one he does. That Moses does. Moses says, I have to make sure that the Jews are one nation for the next 3,000 years. I'm telling the Torah this time, all at one time, all at one shot. And he sits down. There's no Aaron first and his sons. Moshe tells everybody the Torah all at one time. And that is what our progression now is to fix that part of us which is jealous of other people, right? Jealous of other people. Or jealous is one term, but it doesn't identify with them. So I want to suggest that the way to do that, if we do that, that God brings miracles into our midst because of that. That's what I want to suggest. How does that happen? How does that happen? As my oldest daughter is 14 years old, maybe 15 years old now. I should know like the tuitions. How old is the tuition? I don't even know how old she is. What grade are you in? Well, I was a car. Well, you know. So she goes to a school, so she tells me before this time of year that certain of her friends have certain customs on Passover. Some of the kids eat out at anybody's house. That's like a very open-minded custom. I'll eat your Passover food, I'll eat my Passover food. Some of the friends only eat their own parents' Passover food. That's it. We don't eat out at all. And some have like a hybrid. They'll eat store-bought food in your house, but not your food. Right? They have different kinds of customs. Okay, it's fine. And when I lived in Philadelphia many years, and in Philadelphia we'd always talk about Jewish unity. What is Jewish unity, right? So they would have an event sponsored by lots of groups, and that was Jewish unity. But really, we're very, very different. Unified doesn't mean we all have to be the same. We're very different people. We're very different, but we all talk about being one family, or being a member of the tribe, and there's a certain camaraderie you have with the Jew I teach on Tuesday nights at school of Bahraini Jews. There's a connection. They're from Russia. It's a very different culture, but there's a very real connection. You meet a Jew from Italy. There's a very real connection. They have a website now, Shabbat.com. You go to Shabbat dinner anywhere in the world. The same prayer service. It's beautiful. I remember when I was, we had a Mormon kid for Shabbos recently in the Mormon Tabernacle Church, and we were talking, and the Mormons are very, very good people. Very good people, very wholesome people, very good people.
Well, I just want to point out that they used to baptize, Holocaust, people with Holocaust, I guess, the graves of Holocaust, victims, into their faith. So they claim to stop doing that, but I just want to point that out.
It's good point. There are other things that are not perfect, but as far as like family goes, it's good. So I was speaking. I said, so what do your ministers speak about on a regular Sunday? I said they talk about being a good person, or being happily married, being well behaved, whatever. They talk about a million things you talk about, being a man, or being a woman, and all different kinds of topics. I said, does the rabbi in Salt Lake City talk about this, or does the person in Salt Lake City talk about the same thing as the person in Texas, or the person in San Jose, or the person in wherever around the world? And he said, no, it's all different. So I said, really, by us, I said it's all the same portion of the week. It's the same portion everywhere, with some exceptions for Israel, outside of Israel. But it's all the same. There's a Passover all around the world. That's it. So his comment to me was, wow, he said, that's so unifying. So I had never thought about it. Is it controlling? Is it manipulative? He said, no, it's so unifying. So what is it? How are we unified and how are we different? So 3 years ago, we built a house. My wife and I built a house in Passaic. We built a new house. And it's a funny story. We knocked down our old house. When you build a house, you've got to live in a rental for, much longer than you think. Much longer than you think, right? So we had a rental house. My wife was in camp for the summer with the kids. And I was in charge of getting the rental house, moving the stuff into the rental house. Fine. So we had the movers come, but I took some stuff myself in the morning and night don't take everything, and the stuff you want to use, and the clothes, it's something that you really need, they can't take. So every morning I would take a load over, and every night I'd take some stuff over. So one night, 10 o'clock at night, August 20th, I'm taking my suitcase, or like my pillows, like a sleeping bag, or something into this rental house. Fine, I don't think much about it. The next morning, a friend of mine, I think an acquaintance of mine, walks over to me with a very serious look on his face. He says, Kurt, come on, what's the matter? He says, are you okay? I think I'm okay. He says, what what happened last night? I said, what do you mean? He said, I saw you were sleeping out from your house last night. Is everything okay with your marriage? I said, no, I think so. I think it's okay, marriage. No, he said, because you were sleeping out, what's going on? So it was such a funny thing to say, like, why did he think that I was, why would he think that I was out, why was I kicked out of my house? Because what's going on? He was getting divorced. And he had spent the past 6 months going from house to house while he was getting divorced, sleeping out until he found a place to stay. So he assumed that if I had the same behavior he had, I must be getting divorced. So we had a laugh about, he laughed and I laughed. Now about 2 years later, whatever it is, he's happily remarried, they have a kid already, and it's good. But we joke about that it was a total case of like the Rorschach ink blot test. It was really true. He saw my picture and put like his label on my picture. And so I went with thinking about that for a while. And then about 3 months ago, I work in Paramus, New Jersey, and I live in Passaic. So I drive home, and my mother, she rest in peace, she always says I am geographically challenged. I have a terrible sense of direction. I use the GPS to go to the post office. You know what I'm saying? If I go to the synagogue, I use the GPS. So usually the GPS works fine, but sometimes you use the GPS, and it takes you like the back way in New Jersey, and you end up where you think you're in Cambodia, right? So I turned off the tunnel. It's a very dangerous area. I think like Patterson or somewhere, and I had to get back going. I was very scared. So 3 months ago, I'm driving with a friend of mine, 2 friends of mine in a car. He's got a big fancy car, like the big Jeeps, like 40 feet high, bouncing around like that. And we drive through this bad neighborhood. And he says, Kurt, what do you see here? And I remind me at that time with my GPS, I always think GPS should have like a function, no bad neighborhoods, beep, like no highways, no bad neighborhoods, something like that, right? So I said, I'm just buckle my belt. I'm like, let's get out of here. It's a scary place to be. He said, Kurt, you don't understand. This is 2 subway stops from my last building. And pretty soon, the neighborhood here is going to change. I'm going to buy buildings here. I'm going to put in hardwood floors and fancy high-end kitchens, and the rent's going to go up, and I'm going to make a fortune because Manhattan's getting too expensive. The Nomad Hotel's too expensive, right? It's getting too expensive there, and it's going to move out. I'm going to make a mint. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Let's get out of here. And then the other guy said, what do you see here? He says, it's funny, Kurt, he says, I love crime. Okay. Get him out of the car too. Why does he love crime? He's in the retail business. His parents, that company where if you go to Century 21 or a store and they put that stuff on the clothes, if you go beep, 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 like I don't know what it's called,
security tags?
Security tags. If you don't take them off, you can't take that was like his parents' business. They made him, if you wanted to make one bet in America, if you bet on crime 10 years ago, that was a great bet to make. So they made a mint. So when he sees a neighborhood like that, he's like, oh my goodness, it's a changing neighborhood. There's going to be some stores moving in. They're going to buy security tags for everything. The pens are going to have security tags on them. It's going to be great. So this guy, he sees something else. And I was thinking, what do I know? My business is I manage money. So I just see things differently than them. Right? I see those 2 guys as prospects. That's what I was looking at, those 2 guys. They're looking at the area. So I said to myself, what does it mean, Jewish unity? Like togetherness, where we're all one. So it can't mean that we have to be alike, or that we have to have the same goals, because it's just not true. We don't all have the same goals. We have very different goals. But I think what it means is it means that we have to help. We can't hurt someone else in achieving their goals. We can't hurt anybody. We have to help them. And if you can't help them, at the very least, you can't hinder anybody else to achieve their goals. And I want to say the Torah law supports that. There's a law in the laws of Shoftim, the laws of judges and witnesses, that 2 brothers can't testify against each other. And a father and a son can't testify against each other. There's also cousins can't testify against each other. There's some rule how it works. And so why is that? It's like you would expect that 2 people can't testify in favor of each other. That would be expected, right? Remember the case of the insider trading that just happened. This guy Matt Martoma from SAC Capital made a great trade, made $700 million on it. Got a $10 million check as a bonus, which was great at the time, but not so great now that he has to. That he was convicted for insider trading. But in Matt Martoma's case, they came out, he was kicked out of Harvard Law School. Why was he kicked out of Harvard Law School? Because he falsified his transcripts. What does that mean? He and his friend made a computer program, copied the Harvard transcript. He changed his grades from like average, B's and C's, to all A's and like 1B plus. Sent it out to 45 federal judges in the hopes of getting a clerkship. And soon, they're not going to catch me. They got Dartmouth, Stanford, Yale, Harvard. There's no way they're going to catch me. And they caught him. Harvard took 3 days of depositions. And in the depositions, this guy Matt's brother testified. It wasn't Matt that did it. I did it. We were in business together, and we set up the trades together. We said, we faked the documents together. He didn't send it out to the federal judges. I did, in order that he should, in order to see how effective our program was. It wasn't really to get it, but judge, we never would have done that. Oh no! It was just to see how effective the computer program was. So the Harvard people took the testimony, and they realized the guy's lying to his brother, and they threw it out, and they kicked the guy out of school. That's expected, right? At some point, all you have in life is your relationships. And people lie for relationships, for close relationships. People, that's why you can't have husband and wife testify. You're just going to testify to your husband. You know what I mean? It doesn't work. You don't let that happen. But the Torah goes a step further. We don't let brothers testify against each other, or father and son against each other. What if a father and son didn't like each other? It happens. Or 2 brothers didn't like each other. That happens. Let them testify. It's against each other. It's more relevant. We say no. Because it sets up because the part of Judaism is we're supposed to be one family. Those types of things would undermine the whole religion, would undermine the whole family thing. We don't let it happen. They don't testify. And that's a very deep part. In fact, remember I had a call recently with a great. I found as you go through life, you find out very powerful information, which if you reveal it could hurt people. And I called a rabbi I respect. Said, should I reveal X? The person's doing something wrong. Yeah. And he said, Kurt, don't reveal it. It's not your job to fight every battle. Don't reveal it. And he's very I would never go against him. I think he's a very holy person. And you know what? It's now getting out by itself. I haven't done a thing. It's getting out. But it was interesting for me to hear him tell me, even though truth and justice and it does affect your sensibilities the wrong way, still, as another Jewish person, don't reveal it. So I didn't. I want to suggest that the 2 miracles on about 10 minutes long ago, on Purim and Passover, were also created by this idea of protecting other Jewish people. Okay? That this is a deep part of Judaism, so much so that God responds in a huge way when these things happen. What was the story of Passover? The Jews were in Egypt, and they were being beaten up day and night. And it says that we got out of Egypt for 3 reasons. We kept the same clothes and our same names, Moshe and Shmuel and Rivka, Jewish names. It wasn't, Beth or Christian. And we kept our clothes, our names, and our language. Everyone spoke, Yiddish or Hebrew, they spoke back then. And the Medrash says there was a 3rd reason that we kept secrets. We kept secrets. One day Moses is out in the field, and he sees an Egyptian beating up a Jew. He says, God's famous name. The Egyptian dies. He buries him in the sand. A couple of days later, he sees 2 Jews fighting. He says, hey guys, break it up, break it up. They say, oh, are you going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? And Moshe says, oh my goodness, it's known. Oh, it's known. So what was known back then? 2 things were known. One is it was known that he killed the Egyptian, and he thought they were going to tell on him to the authorities. And one thing we don't like in Judaism, we said, is hurting someone else. You can't hurt someone else. These guys are going to tell on him. He said, oh my goodness, if these guys are ready to tell on me, that must be why we're still in Mitzrayim. That's why we're still that's why we're still captive. We tell on each other. We rat each other out. We're not trustworthy anymore. That's what's keeping us here. And that's what said, oh my goodness, we have to fix that problem. We fix that problem, then we'll get out of Israel. Say, how did he fix that problem? Moses goes out, he has to leave because they told him. Goes back to Midian, comes back later, with God in his back pocket, and they tell the Jews, 12 months, guys, the Maseratis are coming, the Porsches are coming, the Ducatis are coming, we're out of here. One thing, on the 12th month, you're going to ask all the Egyptians for all of their money. All their gold and silver, the diamonds from 5th Avenue, right, that were praised in the lower valley, everything, right? And your mother's heirlooms, Leona Helmsley's jewelry, you're going to ask for all the jewels from the Egyptians, and they're going to give it to you. And you're going to leave Egypt with great wealth. 12 months from now, all 3 million people know. If one person tells Pharaoh, one Egyptian, hey, cut me in this deal, these guys are going to take all your money, the Egyptians would have hid everything. Everything. We would turn their summer homes, it wouldn't have been around, under lock and key, in a safe. One person reveals that secret, the entire thing is off. And so if one person took their own interest before all the other Jews, it never would have happened. Never. The redemption never would have happened. But God cares so much about that. He said, for 12 long months, guys, let me see if you can keep a secret. If all of you can keep a secret together, 12 long months. And most of us, I hear something good, I can't wait to tell somebody. Juicy gossip, come on, you just, after Yom Kippur, but give me before you, that's it. 12 months everybody kept it, and that's what caused the redemption. That's what caused it. And we see the same thing by the story of Purim. By the story of Purim, Esther was taken to be queen by Ahasuerus. What's a nice Jewish girl with a big, fat, hairy Persian like Ahasuerus, right? Nobody knows. The guy's that's 400 pounds, he looks like a gorilla, right? It's Esther, right? So Ahasuerus was dying to know where Esther was from. Where was she from? Nobody told. Everybody knew, right? She's from Manhattan. She went to Fieldston. She went to NYU. She danced. She performed at the Met. She was like the most popular girl in New York City. She was a debutante. They had that back then. From a fine family. She was terrific. Everybody knew who Esther was. And God says, okay, guys, look. If you tell me who the girl is, I'll reduce all your taxes. No property tax in Manhattan. I'll give you all $10 million, right? And if you tell me, I'll give you $20 million. That's tremendous pressure. Not Mordechai said, don't tell. Every Jew kept the secret. People knew where she was from.
Why couldn't he know?
What's that? People know where she was from. He wanted to change to save the Jews at some point. So that was her job. No one told where she was from.
What did that have to do with saving the Jews?
So because we kept that secret, God responds to that secret being kept. The Rambam says it was it was a miracle that no one told where Esther was from. And God responds to all of us together keeping secrets in that way, not revealing other people's issues. That could have been bad for Esther.
Wait, but why would Ahasuerus, knowing where she's from, infringe on what might happen later on?
Because she was Jewish.
Oh, because she was Jewish. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So, in both those cases, that secret was kept. In both cases, and both those cases caused a tremendous redemption. Right? Now, those are the two biggest miracles in Jewish history were those two miracles. And so that's what Moses tried to inculcate in the Jewish people by giving us the Torah all at one time, by telling us, hey, you're all in this together. Don't be jealous. Don't look at anybody else, right? Don't look at anybody else. Only look at yourself. One more quick story, we'll finish. I think it's a good story. Because and that's, we don't need to make miracles, right? God's got to redeem it. To be redeemed from Manhattan is not so terrible. It's not so bad back here in Manhattan, right? Other than the price, it's not so bad. But how do you create miracles in your own life, right? What do you do in your own life to create miracles? So there's a good story by the Hornstein Rebbe in the 1900s in Russia. That there was a Russian doctor named Primitov. Back then there was a huge fight. Everybody was anti-Semitic. He was a doctor, he had no use for religion, but he went to a town, Bornstein, and everybody was talking about the saintly rabbi there. He had no use for rabbis, he had no use for religion at all, but he heard this rabbi was such a holy person, he wanted to meet him. So he asked for an audience, and they spent 10 minutes together, and he writes it was a very pleasant experience. His eyes looked kind of through me, deeply through me. And fine, I just wanted to meet him, and he sends me on my way, and as he walks out, the rabbi says to him, he says, make you proud. He says, remember, Primitov, don't hurt any Jew, and I promise you, no non-Jew will ever hurt you. So thank you very much. Semitic town, Russia, fine. He walks into the door, he says, remember, don't hurt any Jew, and I promise you, no non-Jew will ever hurt you. He was very annoyed at the second time, but he remembered it, fine. A week or two later, his job was to test the draftees in the Tsar's army. And everybody wanted to bribe the doctors they should go in the Tsar's army. The Jews, non-Jews, everybody did. And all the doctors were on the take. He made a rule for himself, look, I'm only taking 1 or 2 bribes for a lot of money. So a Jewish boy comes to see him and says, can you help me out? He says, 3,000 rubles. 3,000 rubles, like a small shtetl in Russia. 25 rubles? Sorry, can't help you. Non-Jewish boy comes in 2 days later, same thing, 3,000 rubles. Non-Jewish boy goes to his father, gets the 3,000 rubles, comes back, but knocks on the wrong door. He knocked on the other doctor's door, who was a non-Jewish doctor, very anti-Semitic, hated Primitov, even though he wasn't religious, hated him. and says to the young boy, "Oh, are you from Dr. Primitov? We're all in this together. Let me count the money up." He counts the money up, and he marks the bills, gives it back to him. Now he knocks on Primitov's door with marked bills, unknown to Primitov, who takes the money, puts it in his pocket. The Jewish boy had seen all this. He was hanging around and hoping the doctor would change his mind. He knocks on the door and tells him what just happened. The other guy marked it, the doctor marked it. Primitov looks at the bills, says, "Oh, they were marked." Realizes he just dodged a bullet. They throw you, they put you in Siberia, Russia, for lying at the army with that. Tells the boy, "Don't worry, you'll be exempted." A week later come the tests. The Jewish boy walks up, perfect health. Primitov sees him and says, "Oh, you! It's a miracle you're alive. You know, you're going to tell your parents goodbye, you're about to die." Throws him out. The non-Jewish boy comes up, and the non-Jewish doctor is, chortling. He's about to have this guy thrown to Siberia. He's ecstatic, right? But Primitov knows what's going on. He examines him, says, "Oh, you make a fine specimen." Non-Jewish kid's like, "What about the money, You make a fine specimen of the Tsar's army." The doctor says, "Are you sure? Are you sure? You check him out if you want." Then he stands up, takes the money from his pocket, throws it on the table in front of the entire draft board, and says, "This man tried to bribe me. How dare you try to bribe anybody in the Tsar's army? It's not true. The Tsar's army is honest." And that's it. And that was his blessing. He didn't hurt another Jew, and no harm came to him. Now, obviously, America isn't Russia, and we're not in that type of world anymore. But I think it's a deep principle in Judaism that we're supposed to help other Jews a lot, and we're really not supposed to hurt anybody who's Jewish. We're really not. And God responds to that in a big way. That's what it means to be a member of the tribe. That's one of the big things we got to fight about is, jealousy. The other two walls, man versus man, we have to, no chocolate cookies, control your desires, fine, we all know that. And man versus God, there's a God, we have to respect God, respect people who are greater. But we also have to work on our relationships, not being jealous, not hurting anybody else, and trying to help other people. 42 minutes. With that, I thank you guys very, very much for listening. We can sit and schmooze. I like to get to know everybody who was not, if you haven't been before, say hello again. If you have not before, please say hello again. And thank you for coming, and thank you for listening.